As followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we celebrate this festival because we get to remember the glories of the mercy of Gaur-Nitai. On my left is Balaram's incarnation, Nityananda Prabhu, if I'm facing them. And on my right is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, incarnation of Krishna. So today, on the holy occasion of Panihati, which is also known as Chiradahi festival, we'll be remembering the pastimes and the glories of Mahaprabhu's mercy, or Nityananda Prabhu's mercy. Mercy comes in many ways. It comes in form of blessings. It comes in forms of life-changing moments because of those blessings. If I may request everybody to move forward a little bit, as there will be more devotees coming, so it'll be easier for them to get a spot. So we'll be remembering some of those pastimes today. But before we get into that, let's start with Mangalacharan prayers. For those of you who know, and those who don't, it is on vedabase.io, on Bhagavad Gita, if you have a Bhagavad Gita on your phone, in the introduction section. So let's all invoke the auspiciousness around us by chanting the Mangalacharan prayers. Om Jnanatrimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatham Sahagana Raghunathan Vidham Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Triyubhascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So as I said, we have gathered on this Sunday to remember the glories of the mercy of Shri Shri Gaur-Nitai. And we're sitting at their lotus feet to celebrate this occasion of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami's Chiradahi festival. This is also known as Raghunath Das Goswami's Chiradahi festival, one of the teachers in our tradition, one of the acharyas in our tradition. And the background of this incident, of this festival, goes back to the early days of Raghunath Das Goswami's life. He comes from a very aristocratic family. His father, his uncles, by the name of Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar, the Majumdar family, they were the very wealthy landlords in West Bengal. It is known as West Bengal in India. Used to be known as only Bengal back then. They were almost like kings. Right? They were very wealthy. They were very opulent. They had a riverside palace, and the river on the side of the palace was just full of their boats. You could hardly see the shoreline because there were just so many boats. They were very, very, very rich. But being very opulent, being very wealthy, um, it was not. They were not full of any pride or anything. They were very humble. They were generous. They were devoted to Brahminical culture. They they followed practically and maintained the entire Brahmin community in Nadia. Nadia is a small village in Bengal, and just like so if somebody is in a position where they can help others or they can give charity, so they would do that to Brahmanas, because Brahmanas are the educating class of people, and their duty is to provide knowledge to others, spiritual knowledge, not just any mundane knowledge, but spiritual knowledge. And they had only one son. His name was Raghunath. And so naturally, if you have just one child, that child becomes the twinkle of your eye, the star of your eye. Some of us in this room have one child, and they know that everything in their life revolves around this one person in their household and nobody else. So, so naturally, they were taking very nice care of Raghunath, and they put all their hopes to carry on the family dynasty on him, right? That when this child grows up, he's going to take our businesses forward or whatever work they were involved in. But Raghunath, from a very young age, he was attracted to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because there's a story behind it, how he was so attracted to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The all Majumdar's family, they were a very pious family, and they, just like any other pious family, they had a spiritual teacher, they had a guru, and the name of this guru was Yadunandana Acharya, who was a disciple of Advaita Acharya, one of the intimate associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna. And he also had an intimate student by the name of Vasudev Dutt. Now Vasudev Dutt, and I know there are many different names, but this is how the Gaur Leela is. This Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu and their associates, and these are the different names of their associates. And Vasudev Dutt is actually one of my inspirations, one of my heroes. Why? Because there is Srila Prabhupada made such a comparison between Vasudev Dutt and Jesus Christ, because it is said that Jesus Christ died on the cross for the sins of others. And this was actually after, this was not at the time when this incident happened. It was later. I believe it was either St. Francis or St. Paul, one of the two, I forget which one. He actually said that Jesus Christ died for the sins of others. And Vasudev Dutt actually used to pray that let all the sins of all the people of this world come on me, and let me suffer, and let them get Krishna Prema. So Vasudev Dutt, for that reason, is one of my heroes, because Srila Prabhupada said that Christ is one of our gurus, because we follow the example of Christ, because Christ wanted everybody to follow the teachings of God. Now, how many could follow is a different question for a different time, but at this, Prabhupada was very, very much vocal about that. The only thing that Srila Prabhupada did not like, that with the teachings of God, one of the teachings is that we are all children of God, then why should we kill? And Prabhupada did not make distinction between animals and man. Yeah. So we should not kill. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill animals was not the commandment. Thou shalt not kill was a commandment. So anyway, so Vasudev Dutt, as I think about Vasudev Dutt, he reminds me of his prayers. Now, we should not pray like that. We are not qualified to pray like that. All the sins of the world come on me and I suffer. No, we don't imitate our acharyas. We learn from them because they are an inspiration. And they had a family priest by the name Balaram Acharya, who was a very dear associate of Srila Haridas Thakur and a very close friend of Yadunandan Acharya. So Balarama Acharya and Yadunandan Acharya used to host Haridas Thakur. And when Haridas Thakur stayed in their village, Raghunath visited them daily and received his mercy. So now you know from a young age why Raghunath Das was so attracted to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because these acharyas, these teachers, always spoke about the glories of the holy name. They spoke about the glories of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. So Balaramacharya also used to invite Haridas Thakur to come and speak to the Majumdar family and the entire assembly of the people in that village in Nadia. And when he would come, he would speak about the glories of the holy name. So Raghunath Das, from a very early age, had the association of all these great souls who were the follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He would tell them about Mahaprabhu and encourage them to chant the holy name, just like Mohit and Rishi were chanting when we walked in. Similarly, they would do Kirtan, Nam Sankirtan all the time. So once, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after taking sannyas, visited this village of Shantipur, Raghunath Das Goswami went to meet with him. And in pure love, Raghunath Das Goswami fell at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And out of his mercy, Mahaprabhu blessed him with his touch of his feet. Raghunath Das Goswami stayed and served for a week to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And after that, he returned home like a madman in ecstatic love. And we'll go a little bit deeper into this pastime, that, you know, how he acted after that and why we are calling him a madman. After he returned, he had this intense desire to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, because by this time Mahaprabhu had moved over to Jagannath Puri, and he was staying there. But Raghunath Das Goswami's family would not allow him. Time and time again, he would run away from home to go to Puri, and every time his father would catch him and he would bring him back. Just like sometimes our children run out of the house, they're young, and mother and father running after them and bringing them home inside. And then at the next opportunity, the child runs again, right? Because it's a child, we don't call him a madman. But if a grown-up man does that, what would we call him? A mad person, right? Just running again and again. You're not supposed to go there. We bring them back. So just like this, every time Raghunath Das would get an opportunity, he would run away, and the father would run after him, or the guards would run after him and bring him back. So his father got so concerned. This is a grown-up married man, and he would run away. So his father put 5 watchmen to guard him. Not only that, he had kept 4 servants for him to serve him, anything he needed. He even employed 2 cooks, Brahmana cooks, to make sure, he was comfortable. So 11 people were engaged in serving him to make sure that this person does not go to Puri, Jagannath Puri, where Mahaprabhu is. So later, when Mahaprabhu visited Shantipur, Raghunath Das Goswami begged his father, please allow me to see him. Please allow me to go. I want to take darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Otherwise, my life will not remain in my body. I will die. So now, when a child pleads with father, what does the father and mother do? They give in. Yeah. Now, Raghunath Das Goswami's father also gave in. So his father said, yes, I will allow you to go, but all my servants, all your people who are around you will go with you. So he said, okay, no problem. So at least he gets an opportunity to go see Mahaprabhu. So for next 7 days, Raghunath Das Goswami stayed in Mahaprabhu's association, constantly thinking, how will I get free from these watchmen? How will I be able to go with Mahaprabhu to Jagannath Puri? He's always constantly thinking that. Now, if one is thinking about the Lord resides in our heart. Lord is aware of our thoughts our actions, whatever we do. So it was no different in this case. Lord being omniscient, he could understand Raghunath Das Goswami's mind. So he reassured him with some important instructions. And these instructions form the background of today's Panihati festival, which is celebrated all over the world. And we'll read some of these statements directly from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And they are in Madhya Leela, which is the middle section of the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they're recorded in chapter 16, text number 237. So it reads, Sthirahana ghare yao, naha vatula krame, krame paya loka bhava, sindhu kula. So this is these are the instructions by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Raghunath Das Goswami. He said, be patient and return home. Don't be a crazy fellow. By and by you will be able to cross the ocean of material existence. So Chaitanya Charitamrita is very poetic. So it's written in Bengali, and it is the instructions read as a story, and the poems, it's very poetic. So the verses go in a flow, which is as if you're reading a story or a pastime. And in the next text, it says, Markata Vairagya Nakara Loka Dekhana Yatha Yogya Vishaya Bhunja Anasaktahana. So the translation is, you should not make yourself a show bottle devotee or become a false renunciate. For the time being, enjoy the material world in a befitting way and do not become attached to it. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that the word Markata Vairagya, indicating false renunciation, is very important in this verse. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in commenting on this word, points out that monkeys make an external show of renunciation by not accepting any clothing and by living naked in the forest. In this way, they consider themselves renunciants, but actually they are very busy enjoying sense gratification with other monkeys. Such renunciation is called Markata Vairagya, the renunciation of a monkey. It's a comparison. One cannot become really renounced until one actually becomes disgusted with the material activities and sees it as a stumbling block to spiritual advancement. Renunciation should not be falgu or temporary, but should exist throughout one's life. Temporary renunciation or monkey renunciation is like the renunciation one feels at a cremation ground. When a man takes a dead body to the crematorium, he sometimes thinks, this is the final end of the body. Why am I working so hard every day and night? Such sentiments naturally arise in the mind of any man who goes to a crematorial ghata or crematorium. However, as soon as he returns from the crematorium grounds, he again engages in material activity for sense enjoyment. This is called Shamshan Vairagya or Markata Vairagya. In order to render service to the Lord, one may accept necessary things. If one lives in this way, he may actually become renounced. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that the bare necessities of life must be accepted, but one should not accept superfluously anything that increases his necessities. Yes. So, and nor should they be unnecessarily decreased. Yeah. So there has to be a fine balance. One should accept simply what is necessary to help us advance spiritually, and we should accept only those material things that will help us render service to the Lord. It is also mentioned in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu later on, the same thing. What is Markata Vairagya or Falgu Vairagya? And some of us who are enrolled in the Bhakti Shastri class are now reading Nectar of Devotion or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And it is explained in there, when a person is eager to achieve liberation, he or she renounces things related to, yeah, which are not related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or thinking them to be material. This renunciation is incomplete, because now everything that's related to the Lord should not be renounced. Yes? Agree? Because things that help us render service, they can be accepted. Yeah? But not for personal sense gratification. Now, yesterday, some of us were reading after Mangal Arti instructions of the Lord to Dhruva Maharaj. And one of the instructions we discussed yesterday, where Lord tells Dhruva Maharaj, is that go enjoy the material opulence for now, and later on you will come and reside eternally on my planet. Hmm? And when you read that statement, it's bewildering, because we're thinking, okay, Lord is giving instruction to Dhruva Maharaj to go enjoy material opulence. But what Lord is describing there is that enjoying material opulence is for spiritual advancement by doing yajna. Those who are in position to organize yajna or perform yajnas, they use their material opulence to do that. So that is the material opulence enjoyment that Lord was talking about to Dhruva Maharaj. And then we discussed that in Kali Yuga, which is this age of hypocrisy and quarrel that we see around the world, which is only going to get worse, how do we enjoy material opulence? What is the yajna activity or sacrifices that we can perform in Kali Yuga? So what is it? Mahamantra. Yes. Kali Kale Nama Rupe Krishna Avatar. And we chant the holy name, because that is the only thing that you can do in Kali Yuga. We have no qualification to perform yajnas in Kali Yuga. We have no qualification to do even fire sacrifices, but we perform them with whatever little qualification we have. But the only qualification we have in Kali Yuga is to chant the holy names of the Lord. Yeah. So that is the activity that we are prescribed according to Shastra, according to Vedic scriptures in Kali Yuga, because they're related to Krishna. So if one accepts something without attachment and accepts it because it is related to Krishna, then one's renunciation is called Yukta Vairagya. Yeah, it's called Yukta Vairagya. So in the same text, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami enumerates 64 items of devotional service. And we're not going to go through those 64 items, but we'll discuss a few. The first one he talks about is Guru Padashreya. What does Guru Padashreya mean? Taking shelter of a spiritual master. Yes. And then he talks about, the next is Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam. What does that mean? Initiation. Taking initiation and instruction from that spiritual master whose shelter you have taken. And then he talks about Vishrambhena Guru Seva. What does that mean? Serving the spiritual master. Yes. With respect. Right? And then Saddharma Pracha, which is inquiring about one's eternal duties. Yeah. So these four are very important. First, getting a spiritual master, taking the instruction from the spiritual master in a submissive mood, which is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita also, and then inquiring about one's eternal duties. And at the end of the list, he discusses certain other items that have not been included, but one might think could have been or should have been included in the 64 items of devotional service. And one such item is the cultivation of this Vairagya, Yukta Vairagya, or the principle of detachment. If you think about why do we suffer mentally in today's day and age, if you really think deeply, we suffer because we are attached. We are attached to people, we are attached to name, fame, circumstances, our job situations, our material situations. We are attached. And when those conditions change, not according to how we like them to be, then we suffer. Yes. We also suffer because we are attached to our bodies. Yes. We are attached to our relationships with others. We are attached to the respect we expect from others. So if any of those situations change, we suffer. So cultivation of Yukta Vairagya is very, very important principle in the life of spiritualists. And Rupa Goswami explains that why he has not included it. Yeah. Because he says that the primary, that by nature, bhakti softens the heart. Yes. And the primary activities of bhakti are hearing and chanting about Krishna and remembering him. And when we hear about Krishna's pastimes, his activities, our heart naturally becomes soft. Whereas the cultivation of the speculative knowledge and the performance of these artificial austerities, they tend to make our heart hard, which is the exact opposite of bhakti, which is very interesting. You know, we go to these yoga studios, and I remember I moved to America in 1998. I met devotees in 2000 in college, and these devotees used to go to different yoga studios because yoga studios used to invite them. At that time, it was not very popular to sit in one place and trance and chant and meditate. Yoga was all about physical yoga, hatha yoga, hot hatha yoga, vinyasa yoga, different kind of yoga activities were going on. So I remember in Albany, there was this little only one yoga studio at that time. And it was a branch of the Kripalu Yoga in Lee, Massachusetts. There's the headquarter of Kripalu Yoga in Lee, Massachusetts, about 45 minutes away from Albany. And this yoga studio, somehow they met a devotee somewhere and learned that we do chanting and we do kirtan. And they said, why don't you come to the yoga studio? Because they had heard about it, they had read about it in books, but they'd never experienced or practiced it. And so we started going. And when we went there, all these people, there were like 10, 15, 20 people. And after the yoga session, we were supposed to have this 30-minute kirtan. And as you know, anybody who has never done kirtan before, has never sat in a kirtan before, for them, the practice of meditation, sitting in silence and just meditating on something, that was the only concept that existed. And here we come with instruments, and we start slowly chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And 15 minutes into it, everybody's like trying to move out of their stance. Everybody's sitting like quietly. And after 15 minutes, like they can't sit, and everybody's like moving. And then we had to tell them it's okay to stand up. And if you feel like it, let the energy flow. Yeah. And after 15 minutes, all these people, they got up who had no concept of kirtan because they're not from India. Yes. And they got up, and 30 minutes later, they're just like dancing in ecstasy, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And I experienced the same thing at the Kripalu headquarters in Lee, Massachusetts, because a few months later, my spiritual master, Indadumna Maharaj, had come and with Sri Prahlad. And we went there, and there were these 150, 200, yoga people that had, they come for retreats, yoga retreats to Lee, Massachusetts. And then this Kirtan hall, they have deity of Krishna and Radha, marble deities, very big deities of Krishna and Radha. And when we started Kirtan in a similar way, they're just sitting in meditation and listening Sri Prahlad chant the holy name. And 30 minutes later, everybody's wildly dancing. It's like, what is happening? Like, most of these people have never heard Kirtan before. Yeah. So that is the power of the holy name. because that is our eternal situation. The soul is Sachidananda. It's full of knowledge and bliss. And when it comes in contact with its eternal position, it naturally gets ecstatic. And that energy comes out of our bodies in various forms. So anyway, coming back to the subject matter of Raghunath Das Goswami. So if we do not cultivate detachment from material things, are we meant to be attached to them? The answer is, of course, no, right? The Shastra says that a person absorbed in material enjoyment is far from being absorbed in Krishna. Yeah, so this principle of detachment is very, very important. So, but then how do we resolve this dilemma, right? That we do not want to be attached to material things, yet do not want to cultivate detachment from them, because we just said that we should use things in Krishna's service. Yeah. So in reply, Srila Rupa Goswami says that the taste for devotional service itself destroys one's material attachments. Because, and that is, as we get attached to Krishna's holy name, our heart softens and automatically we started getting detached from things that are not important in life. We might have them. We're not saying that we don't have a house, we don't have a car, we don't have a job, and we all just go to a forest and sit and meditate. Very few forests in America, but rainbow gatherings. Anybody has heard of rainbow gatherings? You've heard of rainbow gatherings. Have you ever met Krishna devotees in rainbow gatherings? No? So back, I'm talking 35 years ago, Radhanath Swami used to go. Devotees, even today actually, not that many anymore, but devotees go in rainbow gatherings. And they used to do Kirtan and serve prasadam. And this is not anything new. And rainbow gatherings are large gatherings, and they are done in secluded places away from this concrete jungles we live in. And devotees would go and they would have Kirtan, they would cook prasadam, they would serve prasadam, and they would stay there. It was wonderful experiences. I personally never been there, but I've heard wonderful stories about rainbow gatherings. So those of you who have you been there in rainbow gatherings or just heard about them? Just heard about them. Yeah? Just heard about them. Okay. Yeah. I think they're very austere, but blissful at the same time. So anyway, because that also is a principle of detachment. We leave our homes, we go live experience austerity in forests amongst like-minded people. And it's on a platform of mental speculation when we say that is detachment. Yeah. And Rupa Goswami explains that what kind of Vairagya is suitable for bhakti. And this is important. He says, Anashaktasya Vishayan Yatharaham Upayan Jataha Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. Anasaktasya means without being attached. And Vishayan means material sense objects. Without being attached, when one engages our material sense objects in appropriate ways in relation to Krishna Sambandhe, in devotional service to the Lord, not to each other, to the Lord, that is called proper renunciation. That is Yuktam Vairagyam, Rupa Goswami says. And Srila Prabhupada used to cite this example of a famous monk in India who was supposed to be so renounced that if anyone offered him money, his hand would curl and turn away. Yeah. But Srila Prabhupada said, but if anybody offers us money, we will immediately take it and use it for Krishna's service. Yeah, that's the difference, because our mind, yes, we are detached to the money, but we are not detached to the service. We are attached to the service. So anything that helps us perform our service is okay. Yeah. But the impersonalists have no idea about Krishna, the beauty of Krishna, or the actual identity of the living entity as eternal servant of Krishna. They may pose as being renounced, but actually they're not. So in contrast to Yukta Vairagya, Rupa Goswami has composed a verse that describes Falgu Vairagya. Has anybody heard of the term Falgu Vairagya? Yes? Yeah. Actually, Falgu is a river in India, in the state of Bihar. Does anybody know that? No? Yes? Mataji's in the back, they know that. And it has a very peculiar quality. What is that quality? It looks like a dry land, completely dry. You'd see the surface, it will feel like, cracked, dry land. Because on the surface is sand. But underneath that sand, the layer of sand is water, a real river with a very strong current. Yeah. So the renunciation of impersonalists who reject the world, who reject material things as Maya, even when related to the Lord, is similar to this Falgu. So on the surface, it is something else, but underneath, so they appear to be renounced on the surface, but underneath is the strong current of material desire. That is Falgu Vairagya. Yeah. So Srila Rupa Goswami says, in the beginning of his discussion around Bhakti in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he poses a question of what makes one eligible. What is one's adhikar? So he quotes a verse from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He says, Yadrichaya mat katha dau jatat shraddhastu yah puman na nirvino nati shakto bhakti yogo siddhisa. If somehow or other, by good fortune, one develops faith in hearing and chanting my glories, it is Krishna's glories, not my glories, such a person, or not Rupa Goswami's glories, such a person being neither very disgusted with nor attached to material life, should achieve perfection through the path of loving devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So first, one should have faith. Adau Shraddha. One should have faith. We have faith in many things. You come into your room, you turn on the switch, you have faith that light and a fan will turn on. But let's put faith in the right direction. Let's have faith and attraction for the message of Krishna. Mat katha dau. And na nirvino nati sakto. One should not be too attached or too detached. This might also seem very odd, right? But the Bhagavatam explains that if one is too attached to the material life, he or she will be unable to take to bhakti, but will be inclined to fruitive activities, which is karma, which will bind us in the cycle of birth and death. And if one is too averse or too negative, he or she will take to jnana, or impersonal speculation. That is also not recommended. Krishna explains very clearly in Bhagavad Gita. Yes? So, for bhakti, one should neither be too attached nor too detached, or too disgusted with material life. Both sense gratification and artificial renunciation make our heart harder. Yeah. So one should be in the middle. There should be a fine balance. Then, only then, the heart will open to bhakti. This is Rupa Goswami. So now, what did Lord Chaitanya tell Raghunath Das Goswami? We're coming back to the story. First he said, don't be a crazy fellow. Don't be a monkey renunciant. That is what Raghunath Das Goswami should not do. Yeah. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells him what he should do in the next text in Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 16, 239. Lord says, within your heart, you should keep yourself to be very faithful, but externally, you may behave like an ordinary man. Thus, Krishna will soon be very pleased and deliver you from the clutches of Maya, of illusion. And then he continues, you may see me at Nilachala, Jagannath Puri, when I return after visiting Vrindavan. By that time, you can think of some trick to escape from your current situation. What kind of means you will have to use at that time will be revealed in time by Krishna. If one has Krishna's mercy, no one can check or trick Krishna. In this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to Raghunath Das Goswami. And then he returned home and did exactly what the Lord asked him to do. So after returning home, what does Raghunath Das Goswami do? He gave up all the craziness of running again and again, or an external, this pseudo renunciation or anything that he was doing earlier. And he engaged in his household duties without attachment this time. For 1 year, because he was more aware of the instructions, for 1 year, Raghunath Das Goswami remained at home, did exactly what he was advised by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was inwardly completely renounced, even in family life. But he did not express his renunciation externally. Instead, he acted just like an ordinary businessman because he had family business, right? Seeing this, his father and mother were very satisfied. He handled, expertly all the serious legal implications that could have led to his uncle's arrest. Like, they were part of this, autocratic family, but they had businesses, and they were, there was Muslim rule in India at that time, right? Which created some difficult situations for family under the Muslim government. But anyway, that's a different story. But he was acting like a proper materialist. His family members were happy. They all relaxed their guard. One time, I was hearing Srila Giriraj Maharaj in a lecture. He said that he really liked this image of Raghunath Das Goswami in Vrindavan. Though he did not understand Raghunath Das Goswami. This is in early days of Giriraj Maharaj coming to Krishna consciousness, and I'm talking 50 years ago. Yeah. So he said he really liked this image of Raghunath Das Goswami, that he wanted to renounce everything, go live in Vrindavan, go to Puri and everything. But he did not understand this internal consciousness of Raghunath Das Goswami. Because if you know Giriraj Swami's history, he comes from a family of a millionaire father. And Giriraj Maharaj didn't want any of that money. He wanted to go away and he wanted to be serving Srila Prabhupada. And he said he wanted to be like Raghunath Das Goswami. Like, goes in Vrindavan, staying one night under one tree, another night under another tree. So Maharaj mentions that although he was feeling like this, he never said anything to Srila Prabhupada about this. But because Srila Prabhupada was empowered by the Lord, Srila Prabhupada could understand his mind, just as Lord Chaitanya could understand Raghunath Das Goswami's mind. So one day, Maharaj was sitting before Prabhupada in his room in Juhu. And Maharaj had not said anything to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada just looked at Maharaj and said, first, you manage your father's property like Raghunath Das Goswami. Then you go to Vrindavan and be a Goswami. That's amazing, right? Like, Srila Prabhupada could understand the mood of his disciple like that. At that time, Srila Prabhupada was very concerned about the Juhu project. But anyway, finally, although Raghunath Das was still being watched by the guards, he got the idea to meet Nityananda Prabhu in nearby Panihati. It's a place. He thought, let me see Nityananda Prabhu. Even if the guards come with me, it's okay. At least let me see the Lord. In this way, Raghunath Das Goswami passed 1 year exactly, like a first-class business manager, managing everything. But next year, he decided to leave home. How long could you hold your inner desire to be in the association of the Lord himself? So he got up one night and left. But his father again caught him in a distant place and brought him back home. So this again became like a daily affair for him. So now Raghunath Das Goswami would run away from home. Father would run after him, bring him back home. Raghunath Das Goswami's mother said to his father, our son has become mad again. Just bind him with ropes and keep him at home. Now, his father was very unhappy with this whole situation. He said, our son has everything, all opulences like Lord Indra, the heavenly king. His wife is like an angel. Yet all this could not tie him down. Do you think we can tie him down with the ropes? That is not going to work. He said, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has bestowed full his mercy on Raghunath Das. Who can keep him home? Who can keep such a madman home? Sometimes the parents of Prabhupada's disciples in early days also thought that their children had become mad. Prabhupada used to say, the hippies have become happies. Once there were two brothers, Bruce and Greg. Later on, they were initiated as Brahmananda and Gargamuni. They had joined Srila Prabhupada's movement. So their mother, they came to Prabhupada and she complained that my boys have become crazy. After speaking with her for some time, Srila Prabhupada invited her to join him in the temple room, where he gave a class, Who is Crazy? He said, what is the definition of crazy? He said a crazy person is someone who doesn't know who he is. For example, if I think I am Napoleon, or I'm Theodore Roosevelt, or I'm Mahatma Gandhi, if I don't know who I am, that means you would think I am crazy. And Srila Prabhupada said, anyone who thinks he is the body is crazy. And that's a very important point, because he doesn't know who he is, that person is crazy. But one who thinks he's this body is crazy. Just a few days ago, a friend of mine sent me a message. He said, there's some events happening in India, some name he sent in a message that I'm very disturbed because of this. This person said something, and Muslims have attacked temples, and when it comes to Hindus, there is always this persecution in our own country, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not aware of this incident or whatever happened lately in India. And he said, I'm very disturbed because of this. And yes, last night, Kanai Gopal Prabhu and Sakshi Gauranga Prabhu, we were discussing, there's a class that Srila Prabhupada, this question was asked of Prabhupada back in 1971, that if Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, why did he let Mughals invade India and destroy Vedic culture? And Prabhupada's answer was very profound. And I'm not going to go into the whole detail, but to summarize it, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that dharma, if we are following dharma, we'll be stronger. If we're not following dharma, we become weak. Dharma, if somebody is following dharma as it should be followed, dharma will protect you. And if you're not following dharma as you should follow dharma, then it will kill you. So he said that why only Mughals, attacking temples back in the day? This has happened in history. Christians attacking Christians, Muslims attacking Muslims, Hindus attacking Hindus, Muslim attacking Hindus. This is Kali Yuga. Why are you surprised? This is the age of hypocrisy and quarrel. This is going to continue to go on. But if these individuals were to practice as they should, their dharma, their culture, they will be stronger. Nobody will from outside attack them. The attacker or the invader is insecure. That's why they attack others. What is happening between Russia and Ukraine? Russia is insecure, feeling insecure, so they're attacking Ukraine. So this has gone on in the history. Srila Prabhupada mentioned that we identify people with the bodies and the culture, but that is not how it should be. So the true transcendentalist is not bothered by the circumstances around. In Bhagavad Gita, it's very clear, Krishna says that a true transcendentalist is the only one eligible for liberation. But if we are thinking and we are emotionally getting depressed, thinking that, oh, this is happening, that is happening. Yes, we need to be aware. We can be empathetic, but we cannot, go in a depression because of that. Because we identify ourselves with our bodies is basically what Prabhupada is saying, that you're crazy if you're identifying yourself with your body. So And Prabhupada says, looks in the direction of the mother of these two boys and says, are these boys crazy? These are devotees. Or are you crazy? Prabhupada was very direct. Then Raghunath Das considered something in his mind. And next day, he went to Nityananda Goswami, it's a village of Panihati. And Raghunath Das Goswami obtained a meeting with Nityananda Prabhu, who was accompanied by many Kirtan performers, servants, and others, sitting on a rock under a tree on the bank of Ganges. Lord Nityananda seemed as effulgent as hundreds or thousands of rising suns. Many devotees sat on the ground surrounding him. And seeing the influence of Nityananda Prabhu, Raghunath Das Goswami was astonished. He offered his obeisances by falling prostrate on the ground in a distant place. And a servant of Nityananda Prabhu pointed out, that is Raghunath Das offering you obeisances. Hearing this, Lord Nityananda looked in his direction and he said, you are a thief. Now you have come to see me. Come here. Come here. I will punish you today. And out of humility, Raghunath Das Goswami had offered obeisances from distance. He was very shy. But Lord Nityananda was always in a humorous mood. Always. And he said, you are like a thief. One who has hidden the shadows of others in the outskirts. Come here. And Raghunath Das Goswami was a young man, 22-year-old, Just imagine, you are in the presence of the Lord. Would you feel like you will directly go and embrace the Lord? Or you'll be like, from a distance paying your respects? That's what Raghunath Das was doing. So Lord Nityananda caught of him forcibly and placed his lotus feet on the head of Raghunath Das Goswami. Lord Nityananda by nature is very merciful. And he's also very, as I said, humorous, funny. And being merciful, he spoke to Raghunath Das Goswami and he said, you're coming from a faraway place and you're paying your respects from a distance. But now that I have captured you, I'll punish you. Go, organize a festival and feed all my associates yogurt and chipped rice. Now hearing this, Raghunath Das Goswami was very pleased. But if you think about it, this is a very humorous request because Raghunath Das Goswami was practically a prince and chipped rice is the most simple food. Now, let's say we're all sitting here right now and listening about this pastime. The door behind you opens and walks in Mr. Elon Musk. What would you say? He came to this temple. I want you to do some service. And we tell him, go buy some puffed rice for all the devotees. That would be a joke, right? So imagine Raghunath Das is living in this unlimited opulence like Indra, the king of heaven. And Nityananda Prabhu says, oh, I'm going to punish you. You have to serve chipped rice and yogurt to all my associates. Raghunath Das Goswami immediately sent his own men to the village to purchase all kinds of eatables and bring them back. Raghunath Das Goswami bought chipped rice, yogurt, milk, sweets, sugar, bananas, and all the other eatables and placed them all on the ground. And as soon as they heard that there was a festival going on, all the brahmanas, all the gentlemen from around the villages, surrounding villages, they began to arrive. There's these innumerable people. Seeing this crowd increasing, Raghunath Das Goswami arranged to get more of the same stuff from other villages. He bought these 200 to 400 large round earthen pots. He bought these 5 to 10 like this especially large earthen pots in which they were starting to make this boga. So they started to put this chipped rice with milk in one of the pots. Then half the rice was mixed with yogurt, sugar, bananas. Other half was mixed with condensed milk. Just thinking about this, my mouth is watering. Yes. So like this, they brought everything. They put some camphor in there. Yeah. Clarified butter, ghee, which is right. So all this was mixed And then after that, after Nityananda Prabhu had, changed his clothes and he sat down on all the brahmanas along with him, they brought these huge pots to serve him. And, Nityananda Prabhu was sitting with all these associate of his. And just as he was sitting there, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's incarnation of Krishna, and Balaram, they always sit with these cowherd boys in their, Krishna Leela, the Vrindavan Leela, right? In his during the Krishna pastimes. So many of these Lord Balaram's cowherd boys, friends, they descended at the same time when Lord Krishna and Balaram appeared as Lord Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. At the same time, they took birth in many Brahmana families. And many of them became the associates of Lord Nityananda over time. And one of them was Udharana Dutt, another name, Udharana Dutt. He also met Lord Nityananda at this Panihati festival. And he appeared in the family that was related to the family in which Srila Prabhupada appeared. Yeah, so there's a connection there, right? That's why I wanted to mention this. So Srila Prabhupada has given us Krishna. He brought Krishna to the West. He brought the holy name to the West. So he comes from a family related to the same lineage coming directly from Krishna, Udharana Dutt. So anyway, hearing about the festivals and all kinds of, these learned scholars, the brahmanas, the priests from all over the place, they started coming. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu, he honored them. He made them sit on this raised platform. If you don't mind, please moving up a little bit. So as everyone sat down, everyone was offered 2 earthen pots. One was put with chipped rice and condensed milk, and in the other was chipped rice and yogurt. So all these people sat down in groups around Nityananda Prabhu. Nobody could count how many people were there. Each person got 2 pots, as I said, with chipped rice and yogurt and condensed milk. And Raghunath Das Goswami kept purchasing more and more of this boga, right? So they could serve everybody. Not only just the brahmanas and these, intellectual people heard about the festival, all the merchants heard. So they also came. Now they brought their goods to sell at this festival. So when you have ever attended the most famous Panihati festival in America happens in Atlanta, where Srila Jayapataka Maharaj comes, and devotees from all over the country gather there and celebrate the Panihati festival every year. So anyway, so Raghunath Das Goswami would feed everybody in the same manner, right? The multitude of these people eventually occupied all the space, all the land. And when there was no more place to sit, people started to stand on the bank of Ganges and eat over there. And when all the space on the bank was taken, people began to stand inside the water of Ganges. Yeah. So the whole place was filled. And towards the end of the feast, Nityananda Prabhu, in meditation, he brought Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to see the fun. Lord Nityananda stood up and he walked with Mahaprabhu amongst all the eaters who were there taking prasad. And as a joke, he took a morsel of rice from each pot and put it in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mouth. It's the Supreme Personality of Godhead associating with his devotees, eating their remnants. That is the sweetness of the Lord. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very happily took these morsels from each pot and then put it in Nityananda Prabhu's mouth as well. So there was this loving exchange going on, and they were having fun, laughing as they were going through this. But nobody could understand what was Nityananda Prabhu doing because nobody else could see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's an assembly of the devotees. They're thinking, what is going on? Yes. And only some very rare, fortunate souls could see that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also present. The entire pastime is very nice. Don't have time to go into details. I'm only halfway through from what I probably want to speak. But anyway, so all these confidential devotees who were the cowherd boys, headed by Sri Ramadas, were absorbed in this ecstatic love. They thought the bank of the Ganges to be the bank of Yamuna at this time, because they're all cowherd boys from Krishna Lila, right? And they're although they are in Bengal by the bank of Ganges, they're thinking they're in Vrindavan by bank of Yamuna. And who can understand the influence and mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, right? He is so powerful that he induced Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to come and eat chipped rice on the bank of Ganges. And Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, they're very liberal, as we see from this pastime. It was Raghunath Das Goswami's good fortune that they accepted all these dealings with him, for arranging this festival. And another great devotee during this time was Raghava Pandit, who lived in Panihati. And during this festival, he also came. And he approached Nityananda Prabhu and invited him to his house for taking prasad. And Nityananda Prabhu said, I belong to a community of cowherd boys. And I generally have my many cowherd associates with me. Are you sure? He said, yes. He says, okay, I'm happy when we all picnic together by the bank of the river. So let me finish this one, and then I'll come to your place in the evening. So that evening, as promised, Nityananda Prabhu came to Raghava Pandit's house with his associates. They performed some Kirtan, they chanted, they danced. In the Raghava Pandit's house is like a temple. And so they all had Kirtan together. And thus, they were all in ecstasy. And seeing this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not stay too far. He also came. Now, not everybody could see him, but he also came. So thereafter, but Raghava Pandit was one of those rare souls who could see Mahaprabhu. So he served Nityananda Prabhu, he served Mahaprabhu, and he served this sumptuous feast for all of them. And then he gave the remnants of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu to Raghunath Das Goswami. So he said to Raghunath Das Goswami that Mahaprabhu has eaten this food. If you take remnants, you'll be released from the bondage of your family. Raghunath Das Goswami wanted nothing else in his life but being released from the guards that were guarding him all the time. So it's stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Raghava Pandit would always prepare a plate for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And every day, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come and eat at Raghava Pandit's house. Yeah. Just imagine when we create a prasad, a plate of boga for the Lordship, and Lordship appears and physically in front of your eyes takes and honors that boga. So anyway, and sometimes when Mahaprabhu would come, he would let him see Raghava Pandit take his darshan. So on this occasion, Raghava Pandit was pleased to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu honor this prasad at his place that he had prepared for him next to Nityananda Prabhu. They were all sitting together. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that the Supreme Personality of Godhead always resides either in the heart or the home of the devotee. Can be both, but either in the heart or the home of the devotee, because not every time every devotee has a home or a temple at the home. But this fact is sometimes hidden and sometimes it's manifest for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he's fully independent. So next morning, what happens when it was time for Raghunath Das Goswami to return to his home? Out of humility, he did not approach Nityananda Prabhu. But he submitted his appeal via Raghava Pandit. So sometimes it happens, right? In my workplace, I'm not comfortable saying something to my second line manager. And I go to my manager and says, can you convey this message? So my manager would do that. But in this case, it was through Raghava Pandit, he sent a message. So after taking his bath in Ganges, Nityananda Prabhu was sitting with his associates under the same tree as yesterday or the previous day. So Raghunath Das approached him Then through Raghava Pandit, he submitted his desire. He said, I am the lowest of the men. I'm the most sinful, fallen, and condemned. Nevertheless, I desire to attain shelter at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like a dwarf who wants to catch the moon, I have tried my best many times. Every time I tried to get away, give up my home, give up my relationships, my father and mother unfortunately kept me bound. Now, said that no one can attain the shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu without your mercy. So, my Lord, I am the lowest of all. I want to attain shelter of your lotus feet. So this was his prayer and this was his message via Raghava Pandit to Nityananda Prabhu. He said, I am very unfit. And this is the mood of humility that we need to learn and we need to imbibe. He said, even him being a great devotee of the Lord, he's saying, I am unfit. I am unfit. I'm the lowest of all. And I am shy to submit my plea directly. Nevertheless, I'm requesting you that please be merciful towards me. Grant me the shelter at your lotus feet, and only then I can get shelter at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Nityananda Prabhu, this is an important point, because without the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, no one can attain the shelter of Mahaprabhu. And Nityananda Prabhu agreed to his plea. He placed his lotus feet on Raghunath Das's head and he praised him in front of other devotees. And he said that Raghunath's standard of material happiness was equal to that of Indra, the king of the heaven. By the mercy of Mahaprabhu, he had no attachment to it. And he asked all the devotees to bless Raghunath Das Goswami so that he would soon attain the shelter of Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. And he said, my dear Raghunath, since you arranged this feast on the bank of Ganges, Mahaprabhu came here just to show you his mercy. And by his causeless mercy, he ate the chipped rice and milk. And after seeing the dancing of the devotees at the night, he took his supper. And now he has come here personally to deliver you. So rest assured that all the impediments in your way, all your bondages will go away. Anyway, I'll fast forward the story as we're approaching the time. But so Raghunath Das Goswami goes back to his home. And one night, their family priest, he comes and he says that, I really need your help to convince this Brahmana who was worshipping the deities at the temple, local temple. He has gone away. I want you to convince him to come back to do his service. And because he was a family priest, nobody in his family, was concerned that, now Raghunath Das Goswami will run away. So they let him go just with him. So he takes him. So it's in the middle of the night and they're walking. So Raghunath Das Goswami, somehow, Krishna had mentioned earlier, Mahaprabhu had mentioned earlier that at the right time, it'll be arranged. Don't worry. Yes. So he tells his family priest, it's so late in the night, you're old. Why are you coming with me? You go home. I will go talk to this Brahmana. I will bring him. Don't worry. So this family priest is okay. He goes, and Raghunath Das Goswami goes to meet this Brahmana, and he convinces him to come back and do his service at the temple. And then the Brahmana returns to the temple, and now Raghunath Das Goswami is all alone. And he says, this is the perfect opportunity. And this is when Raghunath Das Goswami actually leaves. And he takes a hidden route from within the forest in the inner ways to get to Puri. Because the regular way, his father will always catch him. So he wanted to avoid it this time and nobody would know. So this is the pastime of Raghunath Das Goswami and the Panihati Chiradahi festival, and how it came about. And today is that auspicious day. So we pay our respects to Raghunath Das Goswami, without whom there will be no Panihati festival. It said that to attain the mercy of Radha and Krishna, we approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. No. But to get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we approach Nityananda Prabhu. And this is the example of Raghunath Das Goswami, that in order to get mercy of Mahaprabhu, he approached Nityananda Prabhu. Yes, so we take inspiration from these pastimes, the life and histories of our acharyas, and in that mood of service, we serve each other. And outside also, if you see through this example of Raghunath Das Goswami, when he arranged for this wonderful festival, he didn't arrange this festival for just devotees who had gathered. It was open to anyone and everyone from outside as well. So he didn't make any distinction, because the mercy of the Lord cannot be boxed. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that one who shares his message with others is most dear to him. One who shares his name with others is most dear to him. So it is our duty, it is our responsibility to share this good fortune we have with others. That will stop. Srila Prabhupada ki, Raghunath Das Goswami Maharaj ki, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nitai ki, Jai. It's time, if anybody has any questions or comments, we'll take a few. Not, we will move to the next part of the program, which is Arti. And I believe Shama Priya? Yes, we're here. Okay. And I request everybody to rise for the Arti, please.